Marmion by Sir Walter Scott. Canto 4th. The Camp. Eustace, I said, did blithely mark the first notes of the merry lark. The lark sang shrill, the cocky crew, and loudly Marmion's bugles blew, and with their light and lively call brought groom and yeoman to the stall. Whistling they came, and free of heart, but soon their mood was changed. Complaint was heard on every part of something disarranged. Some clamoured loud for armour lost, some brawled and wrangled with the host. By Becket's bones, cried one, I fear that some false Scot has stolen my spear. Young Blount, Lord Marmion's second squire, found his steed wet with sweat and mire, although the rated horseboy swear, last night he dressed him sleek and fair. While chafed the impatient squire like thunder, old Hubert shouts in fear and wonder, Help, gentle Blount! Help, comrades all! Bevis lies dying in his stall. To Marmion, who the plight dare tell of the good steed he loves so well? Gaping for fear and ruth, they saw the charger panting on his straw, till one, who would seem wisest, cried, What else but evil could betide? What that cursed Palmer for our guide? Better we had through mire and bush been lantern led by Friar Rush. Fitz-Eustace, who the cause but guessed nor wholly understood, his comrades' clamorous plaints suppressed. He knew Lord Marmion's mood. Him, ere he issued forth, he sought and found deep plunged in gloomy thought, and did his tale display simply, as if he knew of naught to cause such disarray. Lord Marmion gave attention cold, nor marvelled at the wonders told, passed them as accidents of course, and bade his clarions sound too hoarse. Young Henry Blount, meanwhile, the cost had reckoned with their Scottish host, and as the charge he cast and paid, Ill thou deserv'st thy hire, he said. Dost see, thou knave, my horse's plight? Fairies have ridden him all the night, and left him in a foam. I trust that soon a conjuring band, with English cross and blazing brand, shall drive the devils from this land to their infernal home. For in this haunted den, I trow, all night they trampled to and fro. The laughing host looked on the hire, Gramercy, gentle southern squire, and if thou comest among the rest, with Scottish broadsword to be blessed. Sharp be the brand, and sure the blow, and short the pang to undergo. Here stayed their talk, for Marmion gave now the signal set on. The palmer showing forth the way, they journeyed all the morning day. The greensward way was smooth and good, though humbles and through Salton's wood, a forest glade, which varying still, here gave a view of dale and hill. There narrower closed, till overhead a vaulted screen the branches made. A pleasant path, Fitz-Eustace said, such as where errant knights might see adventures of high chivalry, might meet some damsel flying fast with hair unbound and looks aghast, and smooth and level course were here in her defence to break a spear. Here, too, are twilight nooks and dells, and oft, and in such the story tells, the damsel kind from danger freed did grateful pay her champion's meed. He spoke to cheer Lord Marmion's mind, perchance to show his lord designed, for Eustace much had poured upon a huge romantic tome, in the hall window of his home, imprinted at the antique dome of Caxton or de Ward. Therefore he spoke, but spoke in vain, for Marmion answered not again. Now, sudden, distant trumpets shrill, in notes prolonged by wood and hill, were heard to echo far. Each ready archer grasped his bow, but by the flourish soon they know they breathed no point of war. Yet cautious, as in foeman's land, Lord Marmion's order speeds the band, some opener ground to gain. And scarce a furlong had they rode, when thinner trees, receding, showed a little woodland plain. Just in that advantageous glade, the halting troop a line had made, as forth from the opposing shade issued a gallant train. First came the trumpets, at whose clang so late the forest echoes rang. On prancing steeds they forward pressed, with scarlet mantle, azure vest. Each at his trump a banner wore, which Scotland's royal scutcheon bore. Heralds and pursuivants by name, Bute, Islay, Marchmont, Rossi came, in painted tabards, proudly showing jewels, argent, or and azure glowing, attendant on a king at arms, whose hand the armorial truncheon held, that feudal strife has often quelled when wildest its alarms. He was a man of middle age, in aspect manly, grave, and sage, as on king's errand come. But in the glances of his eye, a penetrating, keen, and sly expression found its home. The flash of that satiric rage, which, bursting on the early stage, branded the vices of the age, and broke the keys of Rome. On milk-white palfrey forth he paced, his cap of maintenance was graced with the proud heron plume. From his steed's shoulder, loin, and breast, silk housing swept the ground, with Scotland's arms, device, and crest, embroidered round and round. The double treasure might you see, first by Acchus born, the thistle and the fleur-de-lis, a gallant unicorn. So bright the king's armorial coat, that scarce the dazzled eye could note in living colours, blazoned brave, the lion which his title gave. A train which well beseemed his state, but all unarmed around him wait. Still is thy name in high account, and still thy verse has charms. Sir David Lindsay of the Mount, Lord Lion, King at Arms. Down from his horse did Marmion spring, soon as he saw the Lion King. For well the stately baron knew to him such courtesy was due, whom royal James himself had crowned, and on his temples placed the round of Scotland's ancient diadem, and wet his brow with hallowed wine, and on his finger given to shine the emblematic gem. Their mutual greetings duly made, the lion thus his message said: Though Scotland's king hath deeply swore ne'er to knit faith with Henry More, and strictly hath forbidden resort from England to his royal court, yet, for he knows Lord Marmion's name, and honours much his warlike fame, my liege hath deemed it shame and lack of courtesy to turn him back. And, by his order, I, your guide, must lodging fit and fair provide, till finds King James meet time to see the flower of English chivalry. Though inly chafed at this delay, Lord Marmion bears it as he may. The palmer, his mysterious guide, beholding thus his place supplied, sought to take leave in vain. Strict was the lion's command, that none who rode in Marmion's band should sever from the train. England here has now of spies in Lady Heron's witching eyes. To Marchmont thus apart he said, but fair pretext to Marmion made. The right-hand path they now decline, and trace against the stream the Tyne. At length up that wild dale they wind, where Crichton Castle crowns the bank, for there the lion's care assigned a lodging meet for Marmion's rank. That castle rises on the steep of the green vale of Tyne, and far beneath, where slow they creep, from pool to eddy, dark and deep, where alders moist and willows weep, you hear her streams repine. The towers in different ages rose, their various architecture shows the builders' various hands, a mighty mass that could oppose, when deadliest hatred fired its foes, the vengeful Douglas bands. Crichton, thou now thy miry court but pens the lazy steer and sheep. Thy turrets rude and tottered keep have been the minstrel's loved resort. Oft have I traced within thy fort of mouldering shields the mystic sense, scutcheons of honour or pretense, quartered in old armorial sort, remains of rude magnificence. Nor wholly yet had time to face thy lordly gallery fair, nor yet the stony cord unbraced, whose twisted knots, with roses laced, adorn thy ruined stair. Still rises unimpaired below the courtyard's graceful portico. Above its cornice, row and row of fair-hewn facets richly show their pointed diamond form, though there be houseless cattle go to shield them from the storm. And shuddering, still may we explore, where oft will whom, where captives pent, the darkness of thy massy moor, or from thy grass-grown battlement may trace in undulating line the sluggish mazes of the Tyne. Another aspect Crichton showed, as through his portal Marmion rode, but yet 'twas melancholy state received him at the outer gate, for none were in the castle then, but women, boys, or aged men. With eyes scarce dried, the sorrowing dame to welcome noble Marmion came. Her son, a stripling 12 years old, preferred the baron's reins to hold, for each man that could draw a sword had marched that morning with their lord, Earl Adam Hepburn, he who died on Flodden, by his sovereign's side. Long may his lady look in vain. She ne'er shall see his gallant train come sweeping back through Cricktown-Dean. 'Twas a brave race before the name of hated Bothwell stained their fame. And here 2 days did Marmion rest, with every right that honor claims, attended as a king's own guest. Such the command of royal James, who marshalled then his land's array upon the borough moor that lay, perchance he would not foreman's eye upon his gathering host should pry, till full prepared was every band to march against the English land. Here while they dwelt, did Lindsay's wit oft cheer the baron's moodier fit, and in his turn he knew to prize Lord Marmion's powerful mind and wise, trained in the lore of Roman Greece and policies of war and peace. It chanced, as fell the second night, that on the battlements they walked, and by the slow fading light of various topics talked. And unaware, the herald bard said Marmion might his toil have spared in travelling so far, for that a messenger from heaven in vain to James had counsel given against the English war. And closer question, thus he told a tale which chronicles of old in Scottish stories have enrolled. Sir David Lindsay's Tale. Of all the palaces so fair, built for the royal dwelling, in Scotland, far beyond compare Linlithgow is excelling. And in its park, in jovial June, how sweet the merry linnet's tune, how blithe the blackbird's lay, the wild buck bells from ferny brake, the coot dives merry on the lake. The saddest heart might pleasure take to see all nature gay. But June is to our sovereign dear the heaviest month in all the year. Too well his cause of grief you know, June saw his father's overthrow. Woe to the traitors who could bring the princely boy against his king. Still in his conscience burns the sting. In offices as strict as Lent, King James's June is ever spent. When last this ruthful month had come, and in Linlithgow's holy dome the king as wont was praying, while for his royal father's soul the chanters sung, the bells did toll, the bishop mass was saying. For now the year brought round again the day the luckless king was slain. In Catherine's isle the monarch knelt, with sackcloth shirt and iron belt, and eyes with sorrow streaming. Around him, in their stalls of state, the thistle's night companions sate, their banners o'er them beaming. I, too, was there, and sooth to tell, bedeafened with the jangling knell, was watching where the sunbeams fell, through the stained casement gleaming. But, while I marked what next befell, it seemed as I were dreaming. Stepped from the crowd a ghostly wight in azure gown with cincture white, his forehead bald, his head was bare, down hung at length his yellow hair. Now, mock me not. When, good my lord, I pledge to you my knightly word, that, when I saw his placid grace, his simple majesty of face, his solemn bearing, and his pace so stately gliding on, seemed to me ne'er did limner paint so just an image of the saint, who propped the Virgin in her faint, beloved Apostle John. He stepped before the monarch's chair, and stood with rustic plainness there, and little reverence made. Nor head nor body bowed nor bent, but on the desk his arm he leant, and words like these he said, in a low voice, but never tone so thrilled through vein and nerve and bone. My mother sent me from afar, Sir King, to warn thee not to war. Woe waits on thine array, if war thou wilt, of woman fair, her witching wiles and wanton snare, James Stuart doubly warned, beware! God keep thee as he may. The wondering monarch seemed to seek for answer, and found none. And when he raised his head to speak, the monitor was gone. The marshal and myself had cast to stop him as he outward passed, but lighter than the whirlwind's blast, he vanished from our eyes, like sunbeam on the billow cast, that glances but, and dies. While Lindsay told his marvel strange, the twilight was so pale, he marked not Marmion's colour change while listening to the tale. But, after a suspended pause, the baron spoke. Of nature's laws so strong I held the force, that never superhuman cause could e'er control their course. And 3 days since had judged your aim was but to make your guest your game. But I have seen, since past the Tweed, what much has changed my skeptic creed, and made me credit aught. He stayed, and seemed to wish his words unsaid, but by that strong emotion pressed, which prompts us to unload our breast, even when discovery's a pain. To Lindsay did at length unfold the tale his village host had told, at Gifford to his train. Naught of the Palmer, says he there, and naught of Constance, or of Clare. The thoughts which broke his sleep he seems to mention, but as feverish dreams. In vain, said he, to rest I spread my burning limbs and couched my head. Fantastic thoughts returned, and by their wild dominion led, my heart within me burned. So sore was the delirious goad, I took my steed, and forth I rode, and, as the moon shone bright and cold, soon reached the camp upon the wold. The southern entrance I passed through, and halted, and my bugle blew. Methought an answer met my ear, yet was the blast so low and drear, so hollow and so faintly blown, it might be an echo of my own. Thus judging, for a little space I listened, ere I left the place, but scarce could trust my eyes, nor yet can think they serve me true, when suddenly in the ring I view, in form distinct of shape and hue, a mounted champion rise. I've fought, Lord Lion, many a day, in single fight and mixed affray, and ever, I myself may say, have borne me as a knight. But when this unexpected foe seemed starting from the gulf below, I care not though the truth I show, I trembled with affright. And as I placed in rest my spear, my hand so shook for very fear, I scarce could couch it right. Why need my tongue the issue tell? We ran our course, my charger fell. What could he against the shock of hell? I rolled upon the plain. High o'er my head, with threatening hand, the spectre shook his naked brand. Yet did the worst remain. My dazzled eyes I upward cast, not opening hell itself could blast their sight like what I saw. Full on his face the moonbeam struck, a face which could never be mistook. I knew the stern vindictive look, and held my breath for awe. I saw the face of one who, fled to foreign climes, has long been dead. I well believe the last, for ne'er from visor raised did stare a human warrior with a glare so grimly and so ghast. Thrice o'er my head he shook the blade, but when to good St. George I prayed, the first time ere I asked his aid, he plunged it in the sheath, and on his courser mounting light he seemed to vanish from my sight. The moonbeam drooped, and deepest night sunk down upon the heath. 'Twere long to tell what cause I have to know his face that met me there, called by his hatred from the grave to cumber upper air. Dead or alive, good cause had he to be my mortal enemy. Marvelled Sir David of the Mount, then learned in story 'gan recount, such chance had happed of old. When once near Norham there did fight a spectre fell of fiendish might, in likeness of a Scottish knight, with Brian Bulmer bold, and trained him nigh to disallow the aid of his baptismal vow. And such a phantom too, 'tis said, with Highland broadsword targed and played, and fingers red with gore, is seen in Rothmercus glade, or where the sable pine tree shade dark Chalmontoll and Auchinlead, Dramuchty or Glenmore. And yet whate'er such legends say of warlike demon, ghost, or lay, on mountain, moor, or plain, spotless in faith, in bosom bold, true sons of chivalry should hold these midnight terrors vain, for seldom have such spirits power to harm save in the evil hour, when guilt we meditate within, or harbor unrepented sin. Lord Marmion turned him half aside, and twice to clear his voice he tried, then pressed Sir David's hand, but naught at length in answer said. And here their farther converse stayed, each ordering that his band should bound them with the rising day, to Scotland's cap to take their way, such was the king's command. Early they took Den Eden's road, and I could trace each step they trode. Hill, brook, nor dell, nor rock, nor stone lies on the path to me unknown. Much might if boast of storied lore, but passing such digression o'er, suffice it that their route was laid across the furzy hills of Braid. They passed the glen and scanty rill, and climbed the opposing bank until they gained the top of Blackford Hill. Blackford, on whose uncultured breast among the broom and thorn and whin, a truant boy, I sought the nest, or listed as I lay at rest, while rose on breezes thin the murmur of the city crowd, and from his steeple jangling loud St. Giles' mingling din. Now from the summit to the plain waves all the hill with yellow grain, and o'er the landscape as I look, naught do I see unchanged remain, save the rude cliffs and chiming brook. To me they make a heavy moan of early friendships past and gone. But different far the change has been, since Marmion from the crown of Blackford saw that martial scene upon the bent so brown. 1,000 pavilions, white as snow, spread all the borough moor below, upland and dale and down. 1,000, did I say? I ween thousands on thousands there were seen that checkered all the heath between the streamlet and the town, in crossing ranks extending far, forming a camp irregular, oft giving way where still there stood some relics of the old oak wood, that darkly huge did intervene and tame the glaring white with green. In these extended lines there lay a martial kingdom's vast array. For from Hebuse, dark with rain, to eastern London's fertile plain, and from the southern Redswire edge to farthest Ross's rocky ledge, from west to east, from south to north, Scotland sent all her warriors forth. Marmion might hear the mingled hum of myriads up the mountain come, the horses tramp and tingling clank, where chiefs reviewed their vassal rank, and chargers shrilling neigh, and see the shifting lines advance, while frequently flashed from shield and lance the sun's reflected ray. Thin, curling in the morning air, the wreaths of falling smoke declare to embers now the brands decayed, where the night wash their fires had made. They saw, slow rolling on the plain, full many a baggage cart and wain, and dire artillery's clumsy car, by sluggish auction tugged to war. And there were Borthwick's sisters 7, and culverins which France had given. Ill-omened gift, the guns remain the conqueror's spoil on Flodden plain. Nor marked they less, where in the air 1,000 streamers flaunted fair, various in shape, device, and hue, green, sanguine, purple, red, and blue, broad, narrow, swallow-tailed, and square, scroll, pennon, pencil, bandroll, there o'er the pavilions flew. Highest and midmost was descried the royal banner floating wide. The staff, a pine tree, strong and straight, pitched deeply in a massive stone, which still in memory is shown, yet bent beneath the standard's weight whene'er the western wind unrolled, with toil, the huge and cumbrous fold, and gave to view the dazzling field, where in proud Scotland's royal shield the ruddy lion ramped in gold. Lord Marmion viewed the landscape bright. He viewed it with a chief's delight, until within him burned his heart, and lightning from his eyes did part, as on the battle day. Such glance did falcon never dart when stooping on his prey. Oh, well, Lord Lion, hast thou said, thy king from warfare to dissuade were but in vain essay. For by St. George, were that host mine, no power infernal nor divine should once to peace my soul incline, till I had dimmed their armor's shine in glorious battle fray. Answered the bard of milder mood, fair is the sight, and yet 'twere good that kings would think withal. When peace and wealth their land has blessed, 'tis better to sit still at rest than rise, perchance to fall. Still on the spot Lord Marmion stayed, for fairer scene he ne'er surveyed. When sated with the martial show that peopled all the plain below, the wandering eye could o'er it go and mark the distant city glow with gloomy splendor red. For on the smoke wreaths, huge and slow, that round her sable turrets flow, the morning beams were shed, and tinged them with a lustre proud, like that which streaks a thundercloud. Such dusky grandeur clothed the height where the huge castle holds its state, and all the steep slope down, whose ridgy back heaves to the sky, piled deep and massy, close and high, mine own romantic town. But northward far, with purer blaze, on Ochil mountains fell the rays, and as each healthy top they kissed, it gleamed a purple amethyst. Yonder the shores of Fife you saw, here Preston Bay and Berwick Law, and broad between them rolled the gallant Frith, the eye might note, whose islands on its bosom float like emeralds chased in gold. Fitz-Eustace's heart felt closely pent, as if to give his rapture vent, the spur he to his charger lent, and raised his bridle hand, and, making demi-volt in air, cried, "Where's the coward that would not dare to fight for such a land?" The Lindsay smiled his joy to see, nor Marmion's frown repressed his glee. Thus, while they looked, a flourish proud, where mingled trump and clarion loud, and fife and kettledrum, and sackbut deep, and psaltery and war-pipe with discordant cry, and cymbal clattering to the sky, making wild music bold and high, did up the mountain come. The whilst the bell, with distant chime, merrily told the hour of prime, and thus the Lindsay spoke. Thus clamour still the war notes when the king to mass his way has ta'en, or to St. Catherine's of Seine, or chapel of St. Roch. To you they speak of martial fame, but me remind of peaceful game, when blither was their cheer. Thrilling in Falkland woods the air, in signal none his steed should spare, but strive which foremost might repair to downfall of the deer. Nor less, he said, when looking forth, I view yon empress of the north sit on her hilly throne, her palace's imperial bowers, her castle proof to hostile powers, her stately halls and holy towers. Nor less, he said, I moan to think what woe mischance may bring, and how these merry bells may ring the death dirge of our gallant king, or with the larum call the burghers forth to watch and ward, 'gainst southern sack and fires to guard Dun Eden's leaguered wall. But not for my presaging thought, dream conquest sure, or cheaply bought. Lord Marmion, I say nay. God is the guider of the field. He breaks the champion's spear and shield. But thou thyself shalt say, when joins yon host in deadly store, that England's dames must weep in bower, her monks the death mass sing. For never saw'st thou such a power let on by such a king. And now, down winding to the plain, the barriers of the camp they gain, and there they made a stay. There stays the minstrel, till he fling his hand o'er every border string, and fit his harp to pomp to sing of Scotland's ancient court and king in the succeeding lay.